Some stories in Westeros are about kings, dragons, and crowns. And then there are stories about the road, about blistered feet, borrowed armor, and a boy who carried secrets far heavier than his boots. About a hedge knight who was too tall, too honest, and far too decent for the world he lived in. Dunk and Egg weren't legends when their story began. They were just two people moving from place to place, helping when they could, surviving when they had to, and slowly becoming part of history without ever trying to be. What makes their tale special isn't just where it ends. It's everything that happens along the way. Hidden rebellions, quiet love stories, decisions that shaped the Iron Throne long before anyone realized it. These aren't the loud chapters of Westeros. They're the human ones, where destiny whispers instead of roars. So today, we're looking at the most fascinating, surprising, and meaningful things about Duncan the Tall and his loyal squire Egg, and how their journey quietly changed the fate of the Seven Kingdoms forever. Let's take to the road. Number 10. A Life on the Road. Why Dunk and Egg's adventures matter. At its core, the story of Duncan the Tall and his squire Aegon Targaryen isn't about castles or crowns. It's about the road between them. When we first meet Dunk and Egg, they're nobodies. Dunk is a hedge knight with borrowed armor and a code of honor bigger than his reputation. Egg is a sharp-tongued, bald-headed boy hiding a secret so dangerous it could get him killed if discovered. Together, they wander across Westeros, moving from tourney to village, from one problem to the next. And that wandering is the point. Their adventures remind us that history isn't only shaped by kings, it's shaped by who survives between reigns. Yet we're told repeatedly that this is just a fraction of their journey. George R.R. Martin has made it clear that Dunk and Egg travel together for many years, helping the helpless, enforcing justice where the law failed, and slowly becoming legends without realizing it. That missing space, the adventures we haven't seen, is what makes their story feel so alive. We know Dunk becomes a great knight. We know Egg becomes king. But the road in between is filled with unseen choices, quiet heroism, and moral tests that shaped who they became. Importantly, these early adventures explain why Egg grows into such an unusual ruler later in life. He didn't grow up sheltered in a castle. He slept in ditches. He saw injustice firsthand. He learned how badly the system failed ordinary people, because he lived among them. Dunk, meanwhile, never stops being what he started as, a decent man in an indecent world. Their time on the road isn't filler. It's the foundation of everything that follows. Number 9. The Third Blackfyre Rebellion. When Egg first tastes history. 10 years after Dunk and Egg first crossed paths, the Seven Kingdoms were pulled back into old wounds with the outbreak of the Third Blackfyre Rebellion. The Blackfyres were Targaryen pretenders, descendants of a legitimized royal bastard line, who believed the Iron Throne belonged to them by right. Their rebellions had already consumed decades and thousands of lives, leaving scars that still shaped Westerosi politics during Dunk and Egg's lifetime. This third uprising was led by Igor Rivers, better known as Bittersteel, founder of the Golden Company. He believed the sitting king, Aerys I, was weak, book-obsessed, and unfit to rule. Bittersteel backed Prince Aegon Blackfyre, hoping to finally tip the balance. What makes this rebellion especially interesting is Egg's role, or rather, how little we know about it. Egg was still young, but by this point, his true identity as Aegon V Targaryen was known within his family. During the conflict, Egg reportedly impressed his father, Prince Maekar, though the details are deliberately vague. We don't know if Egg fought, advised, or simply observed, but whatever he did, it mattered. And that mystery is important. This rebellion represents Egg's first real brush with dynastic bloodshed, the kind of conflict that destroys small folk while nobles argue over legitimacy. It's likely here that Egg began to understand the cost of royal ambition, a lesson that would later define his reign. The rebellion failed, as all Blackfyre rebellions eventually did, but it reinforced a brutal truth. Westeros was trapped in a cycle of pride, inheritance, and revenge. For Egg, it was no longer just stories from the road. History had teeth, and he was standing in it. Number 8. Egg's marriage, love over bloodlines. One of the quietest but most important turning points in Egg's life didn't happen on a battlefield or in a throne room. It happened when he chose love, and in doing so, challenged centuries of Targaryen tradition. About a year after the Third Blackfyre Rebellion, Aeg, whose real name was Aegon Targaryen, fell in love with Betha Blackwood, a noblewoman from House Blackwood. His chances of ever sitting the Iron Throne were so slim that his marriage barely registered as politically important. That assumption would prove to be spectacularly wrong. Aeg and Betha's marriage was significant, not because of politics, but because of philosophy. Betha was not a Targaryen. She wasn't even closely related to one, and Aeg didn't care. Unlike many of his ancestors, he had grown up among the small folk, traveling with Duncan, seeing ordinary families live normal lives without collapsing into madness. That mattered. The Targaryens had long practiced incest to keep the blood of the dragon pure. Aeg, however, began to suspect that this tradition had consequences, including instability, cruelty, and madness. From his perspective, the small folk didn't marry siblings or cousins, and they seemed far more grounded. So Aeg made a decision that quietly challenged his dynasty. He married Betha for love. Together, they had 5 children: Duncan, Jaehaerys, Shera, Darren, and Rael. And here's where Aeg doubled down on his beliefs. He insisted that all of his children marry outside the family. No incest. No pure blood obsession. Just alliances and affection. This decision, though well-intentioned, would later cause massive political fallout. His children resisted arranged marriages, broke betrothals, and followed their hearts. Just like their father had. Those choices angered powerful houses and weakened support for Aeg's reforms. But Aeg never backed down, because to him, ruling wasn't about tradition. It was about people. This marriage represents the core of who Aeg was becoming. A king shaped not by prophecy or entitlement, but by experience. And it's impossible to understand his later reign, or its tragic end, without understanding this choice. Love, for Aeg, wasn't a weakness. It was a principle. Number 7. The Peak Uprising. Loyalty paid in blood. 12 years into Prince Maekar's reign, Westeros was reminded that Blackfyre sympathies had never truly died. This time, the threat came from House Peak, a powerful family with a long history of rebellion and resentment. The Peak Uprising was not a massive civil war, but it was deadly, personal, and devastating for the royal family. House Peak had supported the Blackfyres before, and once again they rose in defiance of the Iron Throne. King Maekar responded directly, leading royal forces to suppress the rebellion. Both Maekar and Aeg were present, marking another moment where Aeg witnessed the brutal reality of power. The rebellion culminated in the storming of Starpike, the Peak stronghold. The Targaryens won, but victory came at a terrible cost. King Maekar was killed during the assault, struck down by a stone thrown from the castle walls. It was a cruel, unceremonious death for a hardened warrior king, and with that single blow, the line of succession fractured overnight. Suddenly, the future of the Iron Throne was uncertain. Maekar's eldest surviving son, Aemon Targaryen, had already taken vows as a maester. He could not rule. Another son had died earlier. That left Aeg, the boy who once shaved his head and followed a hedge knight across dusty roads. Aeg was never meant to inherit. But war has a way of reshuffling destiny. The Peak Uprising matters because it removes the illusion of safety. It shows Aeg that even loyal service to the realm can end abruptly and senselessly. It also positions him, for the first time, as a possible king, a thought that would have seemed absurd just years earlier. For Duncan, the loss of Maekar reinforced his own role as protector, not just of Aeg, but of the realm's future. And for Westeros, it proved once again that rebellion never truly ends. It just waits. Number 6. Aegon the Unlikely. How a hedge knight's squire became king. When King Maekar died during the Peak Uprising, the Iron Throne entered a succession crisis. The obvious heir should have been Maekar's eldest surviving son, Aemon Targaryen. But Aemon had already taken his vows as a maester of the Citadel, and later of the Night's Watch. Vows that could not be broken without destabilizing the realm even further. A great council was called. Only twice before had Westeros used this rare solution to decide a king. The nobles gathered, debated bloodlines, legitimacy, and politics, and when all the better options fell away, they were left with Aeg, the 4th son of a 4th son, a boy raised on the road, a former squire who slept among small folk and learned the cost of noble cruelty firsthand. Many lords hated the idea. Aegon had spent too much time with common people, too much time listening, too much time with Duncan the Tall, a man who punched princes and defended Dornish women without a second thought. To the nobility, Aegon felt unpredictable, even dangerous. But there was no better choice. And so, against expectation and tradition, Aegon was crowned Aegon V Targaryen. What made his reign remarkable wasn't ambition, it was empathy. Aegon ruled with the memory of dirt roads still fresh in his mind. He remembered starving villages. He remembered unjust lords. He remembered what it was like to have no power. As king, he tried to change the system. He pushed reforms that protected the small folk, limited noble abuses, and weakened feudal exploitation. Unsurprisingly, this made him deeply unpopular among the great houses. His enemies weren't rebels with banners. They were lords with smiles and quiet resistance. Aegon also carried guilt. He knew that the crown separated him from Duncan, not emotionally, but symbolically. The king could not wander the roads anymore. The world that shaped him was now something he ruled from above. Still, Aegon never stopped trying to be the boy he once was. That's why history remembers him not as Aegon V, but as Aegon the Unlikely. A king who never sought power, and paid dearly for trying to use it kindly. Number 5. Lord Commander Duncan the Tall. Honor made flesh. If Aegon was the most unlikely king, then Duncan the Tall was the most unlikely legend. Duncan never wanted glory. He wanted to be a good knight, even when the world made that difficult. And yet, over time, that stubborn decency carried him higher than anyone could have predicted. Sometime early in Aegon's reign, Duncan was appointed to the Kingsguard. For a hedge knight with no noble name, this was almost unheard of. But Aegon trusted him absolutely, and Westeros would soon learn why. Duncan didn't just wear white armor. He lived the vows. He defended the innocent even when it meant breaking royal teeth. He stood against princes when they were wrong. He judged men by their actions, not their blood. Eventually, Duncan rose to become Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, the highest honor a knight could achieve. His reputation spread quietly, the way true respect always does. One of the most telling moments of Duncan's legacy came when he faced Barristan Selmy, then a teenage knight known as Barristan the Bold. Duncan defeated him, not through cruelty or pride, but through experience and control. Barristan would later become one of the greatest swordsmen in Westerosi history. And even he remembered Duncan. What made Duncan special wasn't skill alone, it was restraint. As Lord Commander, Duncan protected Aegon not just from assassins, but from the weight of kingship itself. He remained a moral anchor, the same man who once slept under hedges and shared meals with farmers. When politics turned vicious and Aegon's reforms angered powerful lords, Duncan stood beside him anyway, because Duncan had sworn an oath. And Duncan the Tall never broke an oath. His rise proved something rare in Westeros. That honor, even when mocked, still matters. And sometimes it reshapes history. Number 4. Aemon and bloodraven at the wall. Protecting a king from himself. One of Aegon V Targaryen's very first decisions as king was also one of his most telling. Rather than executing or imprisoning his enemies, Aegon chose exile, and in doing so, protected both the realm and his own reign. The man at the center of this decision was Brynden Rivers, better known as Bloodraven. A feared spymaster, sorcerer, and Targaryen bastard, Bloodraven had served the crown ruthlessly for years. During the Great Council that crowned Aegon, he offered safe conduct to a Blackfyre claimant, and then promptly arrested and executed him. Technically, Bloodraven had acted in the crown's interest. Politically, it was disastrous. Aegon understood that keeping Bloodraven close would forever taint his rule. Executing him would risk civil unrest. So Aegon chose a third path. He sent Bloodraven to the Night's Watch. What's often overlooked is that Maester Aemon, Aegon's older brother and the rightful heir, chose to go with him. Aemon believed that as long as he lived, ambitious lords could use him as a rallying figure against Aegon. Taking the Black removed that threat permanently. It was an act of love and sacrifice. They were escorted north by Duncan the Tall, marking one of the last times all three men were together. Within a few years, Bloodraven would rise to become Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and then vanish beyond the wall, eventually revealed in A Dance with Dragons as the Three-Eyed Crow. This decision encapsulates Aegon's reign. He didn't rule through fear. He ruled through prevention, and in sending two of the most dangerous and powerful Targaryens away from politics, Aegon ensured peace, at the cost of losing his family. Number 3. The Fourth Blackfyre Rebellion, The Last Pretender Falls. By 236 AC, the Blackfyre cause was dying, but it wasn't dead yet. The Fourth Blackfyre Rebellion was led by Daemon III Blackfyre, crowned by Aegon Rivers. Unlike earlier rebellions, this one lacked momentum. Westeros was tired. The great houses were no longer eager to bleed for a lost cause. Still, Aegon acted swiftly. He gathered his sons and his forces, and met the invaders before they could gain support. The rebellion ended quickly and decisively. During the fighting, Duncan the Tall personally slew Daemon III, ending the Blackfyre male line once and for all. It was a symbolic moment. The hedge knight who once punched a prince now killed a pretender king, not for glory, but for duty. Bittersteel escaped east yet again, but the dream was dead. The Blackfyres would never again pose a serious threat. For Aegon, this victory brought grim clarity. War always came back, even when justice was on his side, and it reinforced his belief that Westeros needed reform, not endless cycles of vengeance. Number 2. The War of the Ninepenny Kings, A Realm on the Brink. The War of the Ninepenny Kings began far from the Iron Throne. A loose alliance of exiles, mercenaries, pirates, and dispossessed nobles banded together in the Stepstones, each dreaming of carving out a kingdom of their own. They called themselves the Band of Nine, and among them stood one last symbol of a blood-soaked past: Maelys Blackfyre. Maelys was the final Blackfyre pretender, a man as brutal as he was infamous. Twisted in both body and mind, he had murdered his own cousin to secure his claim, believing strength alone justified kingship. Where earlier Blackfyres had relied on loyalty and legacy, Maelys ruled through terror. His existence was proof that the Blackfyre cause, though diminished, was not yet extinguished. By this time, Aegon was no longer the sharp-eyed boy who had once walked the roads with Dunk. He was an aging king, worn down by years of political resistance and noble defiance. His reforms, meant to protect the small folk, had earned him enemies in every powerful house. Though crowned, Aegon often found himself ruling without obedience, and so his thoughts returned to dragons. Aegon became increasingly convinced that only dragons could accomplish what laws could not. With dragons, he believed he could finally enforce justice, break the power of rebellious lords, and reshape Westeros into a fairer realm. He scoured ancient texts, sent expeditions east to Ashai, and immersed himself in forgotten lore, chasing whispers of sorcery and lost knowledge. While the realm prepared for war against Maelys and the Ninepenny Kings, Aegon looked inward, toward prophecy and fire. That choice mattered. The War of the Ninepenny Kings would eventually be fought, and won, by the next generation of warriors. Men like Barristan Selmy and others would earn their legends there. But Aegon would never see that victory. Before Maelys could be crushed, before banners could clash, before Westeros could bleed one last time for the Blackfyre dream, tragedy struck at Summerhall, and the war that threatened the realm was eclipsed by a fire that consumed a king. Number 1. The Tragedy at Summerhall. Fire, prophecy, and the end of a dream. In the year 259 AC, Aegon V Targaryen summoned much of his family and closest companions to Summerhall, the palace of his birth, and once a place of warmth and memory. Officially, the gathering was a celebration. His great-grandson, Rhaegar Targaryen, had just been born. Unofficially, it was something far more dangerous. Aegon intended to bring dragons back into the world. What exactly happened that night remains one of the deepest mysteries in Westerosi history. The records are fragmented. The witnesses are gone. All that survives are whispers of dragon eggs, of wildfire, of ancient spells and prophecy. Some say Aegon believed Rhaegar was the prince that was promised. Others say desperation drove him beyond reason. What is certain is this: Summerhall burned. The flames consumed the castle, turning stone to ash and dreams to smoke. When the fire died, so had much of the royal family. Aegon the Fifth Targaryen was dead. His lifelong friend and protector, Duncan the Tall, was dead as well. So were countless others whose names history barely remembers. Dunk did not die seeking glory. He died because he had sworn an oath to protect his king, even from himself. Egg, meanwhile, died chasing a vision. Not power, not conquest, but a better world. He believed dragons were the answer to injustice, the final tool to protect the powerless. In the end, that belief consumed him, just as fire had consumed so many Targaryens before. And yet, his legacy did not vanish in the flames. His son ruled after him. His grandson would sit the Iron Throne, and his great-grandson, born amid smoke and ruin, would grow into a figure of prophecy whose choices would shake the world. As for Dunk, the hedge knight who never wanted greatness, he lived on in memory, in stories, in quiet respect. Proof that even in a world of crowns and dragons, a good man can still matter. Sometimes, the most important legends aren't written in fire, but in the lives they quietly shape. Dunk and Egg never set out to change the world. They just tried to do the right thing, one road at a time. And is there a Dunk and Egg moment you're still hoping to see adapted on screen? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Westeros's quieter legends, give the video a like. And subscribe for more stories where honor, history, and heartbreak quietly shape the world. We'll meet you on the road.